Michigan Senator Gary Peters is the top Democrat on the Homeland Security Committee. He also sits on the Armed Services Committee. Joins us now. Senator, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Let me first start by asking you about why the need, as we just read there from that joint statement by Speaker Pelosi and Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, why the need to wrap up the funding for hospitals and state and local governments in with the Small Business Protection Program?
I think it's clear that they need those resources. If you think about what we're dealing with right now, it's a public health crisis, first and foremost. We know our hospitals are stressed and will continue to be stressed. This is an appropriate time for us to kind of step back after the CARES Act passed. Where are the needs, and make sure that we're funding those needs going forward. I think we all agree, and I certainly agree, that small business needs to be helped. It's the engine of growth for our economy, and as we're going to restart our economy, it's critical that our small businesses can be there and can survive this very difficult time. But we also have to make sure our healthcare providers have the resources they need. We need to make sure we have personal protection equipment so that we can provide that to all of our healthcare professionals, as well as testing. Certainly, that's something that we continue to lag behind. We've got to make sure we have resources to aggressively expand testing across the country, and it's particularly needed here in Michigan as we continue to be a hotspot.
So without the additional funding, though, I'm curious to get your thoughts, Senator. The Paycheck Protection Program is slated to run out of funds as early as this week. Can you guarantee that Congress will be able to pass additional funding for small businesses before that? Are you actively negotiating with your colleagues across the aisle?
We are, and we hope we can come together in a bipartisan way, as we did for the CARES Act. That went through. Folks found common ground. We were able to pass it unanimously. I would hope that that's what we do in this case as well. This should not be a time for political posturing or scoring political points. This is about coming together to decide how do we deal with this crisis as it continues to unfold literally on a daily basis. And we know that there are other needs. Let's try to take care of those needs while we're dealing with the small business issue. I think many of us also want to make sure that the small businesses that are most in need are actually getting this money. So I think it's important for us to be focused on that as well.
The president retweeted a user this morning who called for Dr. Anthony Fauci to be fired. How, if at all, would Democrats respond to that? We know this president has a history of going after people that may have disagreed with him in the past.
Well, that would be just the wrong thing to do. Dr. Fauci has leaned in, provided expert advice, and that's really what we need to get through this crisis. And the American people want to hear from people who they trust, who are actually experts in the area, can talk about what we're experiencing now, as well as put forward a plan as to how we start opening up the economy, moving forward to a new normal, but knowing that that's going to take some time. And we all want to have folks who are experts in this area directing that. And I would hope the president would want to be surrounded by people who are experts.
Let me get your thoughts on some reporting from the New York Times that came out. The extent to which the president was warned about the potential for a pandemic, but that internal divisions, lack of planning, and his faith in his own instincts led it to halting a response. How do we as a society, as a government, make sure that we don't miss these signs again going forward?
Well, we can't. We certainly have to step back and look at lessons learned. We had some time in order to prepare for this pandemic, and time is usually not on your side when you're dealing with a virus that can expand exponentially. You have to lean in, and you have to lean in very strongly at the front. Clearly, we needed to be producing more personal protection equipment. We needed to have a testing regime that was much more robust than what we had. There are going to be a lot of lessons learned when we get through this. But right now, my focus is on dealing with the challenge that we have before us, making sure that our small businesses can survive, making sure families can put food on the table and be able to keep a roof over their head, and making sure our health providers who are on the front lines get the equipment they need to treat folks who are suffering from COVID-19. Yeah. So right now, my focus is on challenges today and what we need to do going forward.
Senator, as I mentioned, you sit on the Armed Services Committee, a very important committee. I want to get your reaction to news out of the USS Teddy Roosevelt, the Pentagon announcing that a sailor assigned to that ship has now died of the coronavirus. That is, of course, the aircraft carrier that, to our viewers, may recognize was captained by Captain Crozier, who was removed for a lack of confidence after he went public, essentially, with a plea for help for his sailors. What do you make of that news? And again, what role, if any, does the committee here play in finding out what happened with this captain and him trying to ring the alarm bells?
Well, first, it's a tragic loss, and my heart goes out to the families of that sailor. And certainly I'm concerned about other sailors who are also ill with COVID-19. But I think it's clear we need to investigate exactly what happened. We've asked the Inspector General to take a look at this situation. I understand we're going to have more facts and more information coming from the Department of Defense in the days ahead. But I think it's important for us to do a deep dive, find out exactly what happened. And based on this death and the number of sailors who have been impacted by COVID-19, clearly the captain was concerned about his crew and felt compelled to take that action because of his serious concerns. And now we're seeing those concerns certainly appear to be warranted.
All right. Michigan Senator Gary Peters, sir, thank you very much for joining us this morning. I appreciate your time.